What's going on, guys? Kaiger here, back with a video. Today we're going to be reviewing almond butter. I'm calling her almond butter. I just think that's kind of funny. I really enjoyed the fairy's name. And first we're going to jump into our summons, which are going to be 300. I think I only showed 200 because I had to top up again and do the other 100. But we're going to do our summons, and we're also going to pull on the gacha. I do not recommend pulling on this gacha. I did not check because I was just doing my recording, but there is no gacha event so that you get gold coins back when you do it. So I suggest skipping it. It also isn't the greatest looking outfit, in my opinion. I just wanted to do it for this summoning session. So let's do the summons and then get back to it. Alright, now the summons are over, and I have 3 things to go over. First, I want to talk about the wind echo that you see in front of us right now, towards the top right there. Then I'm going to read her abilities to you, tell you what I think about them, and then we're going to watch some testing I did with a buddy of mine, as well as letting him attack, see how the passive works, and then we're going to go to the dummy like we normally do and check out her offensive power. So starting with the Wind Echo right here, we're going from everything's the same as far as the attributes. The only thing that's different is we're getting 6% more defense. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but this makes it Wind a better brawler echo. So right now, most brawlers are going for Earth, but this makes Wind a viable option for brawler as well. I think just because of what the Earth fairies themselves do, Earth Echo is still probably better in most brawler builds, but depending on your team comp, things like this, I do think that Wind is a very viable echo. Now, up here at the top is also something that was changed. Instead of 0.3% attack and defense, you get 0.45. Lasting 8 seconds, can stack up to 5 times. So, instead of 1.5% attack and defense, we're now looking at 9.9, 1.8, 2.25%, which is a decent upgrade. It's not big numbers, but I mean, with the extra 6% we got here, it is a bigger difference. Now let's jump into the game and check out the abilities and see what we think. Alright, there's our girl, Almond Blossom, as you see. After the summons I did, and the other 100 I did afterwards, I was able to get her up to 2 rainbow. That means I am 3 copies away from 3 rainbow, and let's see how good she is before deciding if we want to do that. So, the basic attack, nothing special here, about what you would expect. Now the passive is going to be the make it or break it, in my opinion. There we go. So, and that is the stats themselves towards the bottom. Those are decent, but the big thing is going to be this automatic passive. So let's check it out. Is triggered when Almond Blossom is the flower fairy of the current class when the character is affected by a debuff. Grants immunity to the debuff and then increases the character's attack by 1% and defense by 2% for 6 seconds. So it scales up to 8% attack and 16% defense. We're going to go over the testing of this, but something that will make the explanation easier is it says debuffs. And crowd control is not the same as debuffs in this game. So when they're saying debuffs, they mean things like attack down, defense down, movement speed down. For some reason, slumber is counted as well. But things like stun, knock up, knockback, and pull effects, which are generally stopped by super armor, are not stopped by this effect that we'll see in a little bit. So you can see it as a vice versa thing. Anything that super armor stops, which is knock up, knockback, and knock up, knockback, and pull effects, this is effectively the opposite. Now, going on to the active ability, Colorful World, Almond Blossom draws a colorful world, dealing damage to the enemy and adding Dream Space to the character for 6 seconds. Dream Space gives super armor, immune to control, so she's kind of covering the other aspects. This is where it kind of all comes together. And this is another weird thing that we saw with when they showed us the new classes that we were talking about later on this year. This is something that the assassin later this year might have as well. So it's important to see how this works out. This is probably a test to see what happens later on. Each time, so you get 60% dodge chance. There's no way to ignore this dodge chance. It is just 60% chance to dodge whatever. This is going to require a little bit of extra testing to see if it's just basic attacks or also abilities. I was not able to work on that, and I apologize. So 60% chance to ignore damage. We're going to assume basic attacks and abilities. Within 6 seconds, every time you dodge passively, dodge rate is decreased by 20%. So you get 3 dodges, which also reduces the chance. So 60% one dodge, 40% second dodge, 20% third dodge, and then you're out of dodges. But there's also a timer of 6 seconds. So if you're fighting against this, you could just walk away, or attempt to at least. And attack is increased by 8%. The effect can be stacked. So that is, you get the 8% attack whenever you dodge. So you can get 8, 16, 24% attack. If the character's HP is lower than 50%, 10% of the damage dealt by this skill will be converted into HP. So this is something that we saw with Blue Rose as well. It's a very nice thing to just have tacked on. She effectively has a better plunder caked in on her if you're at least under 50% HP, which can be powerful. And we can see it scales up. A very important one is the level 2. Every time dodge is triggered, passively reduced by 10%. That gives you 6 dodges, which can be very powerful if it does in fact dodge abilities. Now we know for a fact it's going to dodge attacks because that just makes sense. The next big one is going to be at level 5. When the skill deals damage while you're under 50%, it ignores 30% of the target's defense and block. That's pretty good. Oh no, it's execute to a unit. Yeah, it's a execute type ability if they're under 50%, which is slightly better, well, about the same as Slaughter, the similar HP ranges. And that is it. And then level 8, this skill inflicts 2 seconds of silence to the enemy hit. Now, we already talked about the passive. I'll show you the gameplay in a minute. But let's go to the dummy and see what we can check out over here with her abilities. Now, you guys didn't tell me if you like seeing how they work in the flower thing where it's 3 flower fairies against other flower fairies. So I'm not going to do it this time. First, we're going to test the basic, see how quick it is. Some basics are faster than others, but they're not listed anywhere. Okay. As you see, she has a faster basic. As you see, she's getting further and further into a second rotation. I don't know, what is that, 20, 30% faster? Now let's click the ability. That's a pretty long wind-up. That's a pretty long wind-up. I do like all the paint and stuff on the ground, but that was a pretty long wind-up. Let's jump into the recording and show you what the passive does and does not work against, and then we will finish with our conclusion. Okay, here we go. Jumping straight into it. I already talked to them ahead of time. And first, as you'll see, let's do a test. Alright, did Sakura, and as you saw, it ignored the pierce drop. The first bit of her skill, but the actual stun went through. Then I kind of let him go through the motions. Then we go on to the next one. Alright. 10 seconds. Alright, here we go. Here's Licorice. Doesn't work on the stuns. Go on to the next one. And Slumber. See, I ignored the Slumber. So that was really cool. And there's the knockup. The knockup worked on me. Immediately ended the duel. Waited. So I'm doing a bunch of pauses here. So you're not. I have to wait 30 seconds between attempts to make sure the passive is up. That's why there's a bunch of jumps between them. And then right here, bam, bam. And the stun. The stun, it would not have been up at that point. What we actually tested here, there's the knockup. Alright, stop. On to the next one. This one was the pull effect, but he did several things at the same time. So we tested it again after this one to test the pull effect. I didn't know everyone was here watching. One. Pull effect works. See, so she's not stopping the pull effect, and that's it for that testing. So how do we rate her, right? So her actual active ability is pretty strong in game modes where you're able to use fairies. So she seems like she'd be very good in something like Thunder Roar or not Top League, Shrine Peak on Saturday. Now, obviously, Holy is the better Echo for PvP, but for PvE, Wind Echo did get better, but the way Wind Echo got better is a more defensive brawler style, which she kind of goes into. In game modes that you're able to use her active slash passive makes you kind of definitely tankier because you're going to live longer, but also you can ignore a lot of things. Something that I didn't mention here that we also saw in this recording is if he does a knockup, knockback, any of the things that it does not ignore, it kind of still ignores because it doesn't use up that charge of the passive. So if I have super armor either from the active ability or from Priest or from Gladiator, then I also have the passive in my back pocket for things like healing recovery down, movement speed down, things like this. But there's a lot more of those that are just around that you kind of just ignore, like looking right there on my sheet, right? So it'll ignore the tenacity drop from the tenacity ball, but I could just use Frostworm first and it'll ignore the slow, and then I hit you with a tenacity ball. So if it made you immune to all of those types of effects for a window of time, it would be a lot better. if it worked on a stun effect, stun, knock up, knock back, or pull effect, then it would be a whole lot better. But right now, I think she's mid tier. She's probably going to drop somewhere in the A to B range. Once I do the tier list, I'm going to do more testing with her. I'll have the tier lists at the beginning of next week. But in PvP, she's probably going to be somewhere in like the B tier. In PvE, she's probably going to be A tier because of the self-healing and such. But she has S tier jiggle physics, right? So let me know down below what you guys think about almond butter. Should you summon on her? I think you should do whatever amount you're able to do. I did my video talking about summoning on banners, what you should do. If you are a non-spender, then you should save your seeds, in my opinion. If you are a value spender, I think you should go for the 120 or 150 pulls so you can get the extra copies or whatnot. If you are a mid-tier spender, in your opinion, I think you should do the 200. And if you're just a big boy spender, you're probably already going to do it. 300 is fine just to get her up and going. But I don't think you should really focus on her unless she gets a buff later on. Which that's going to be tomorrow's video, is the buffs and nerfs fairies that have happened in the past about month and a half. Till next time, guys.